Folks, my name is Tamara Johnson. This is our first time with the Venture Cafe, and I'm like super excited. Found out about this group through Jim Burnett. He's a part of our panel. Mark Randall is here, and Majette Reyes, she's here as well. So what I wanted to talk about was failure in business. I know we're saying resiliency and uncertainty right now with COVID-19 happening. Everyone is dealing with so many things with their business, personal life, but especially entrepreneurs. Like we're kind of going through it right now. This thought happened in December. So with Mark, Majette, and Jim, I came to them because I wanted to talk about my journey as being an entrepreneur. And all of these folks have like this connection with me. So long story short, this would be a very long story, but I'm going to give you the short version. I started my dream of being a boutique owner, a fashion designer, about almost 10 years ago. I learned how to sew on my own. I tinkered, I did all those things, and I had a full-time job, as my breadwinner, right? And I'm saying to myself, okay, I'm coming up, in age. I'll be about 40 soon, and I want to jump into this. So about 7 years of that, getting mentors, going to the Small Business Development Center, getting different entrepreneurs' opinion. I did all the things that you're supposed to do. And probably maybe about 2015, I said, okay, I'm going to jump out and I'm going to make this happen. Now, stable job, okay? Stable job, wasn't married. I have an older daughter. Everything was lining up right. And I wasn't able to get the funding that I thought that I needed, but I had a 401k that was over $100,000. And I said, I'm going to use this money. Now, of course, if you do that, everyone tells you not to, but when you read the books with Steve Jobs, Chris Garner, all of these folks are saying leap, right? They took their first $500, they leaped, they took their first 5,000, they had no money and they did it. So I'm saying this to myself, I'm going to do it, right? Well, of course, I was being prudent. I had an accountant, told my accountant that I wanted to do this, and she said, no, you're not doing this. Give yourself a year. If you feel this way in a year, then jump. I gave myself a year. I wrote it down. And I said, okay, if I feel that I want to jump and leap into this entrepreneurship, I'm totally going to do it. Well, that year came, I felt it, and I said, okay, it's time to leap. And what's funny is Majette, who I introduced you to, she saw me on the stage where I just had like this table. I had a table of my wares that I was selling. I worked with her, and then, I quit my job. I cashed out my 401k. I did everything, like I said, I was supposed to do. And it was time for me to open this store. So I opened this store, and I have these great artists, and I have my products that I'm making by myself. I'm doing these things, and I meet Jim. Jim, he is a part of our financial piece that we're going to talk about. He saw my store and was like, okay, what are you doing here? What are you doing in my neighborhood? He wanted to know everything about it because I was a newcomer. So I'm feeling great, right? I got my store now. Everything that I wrote down was going to happen the right way for me. I was going to be able to franchise out. These were my big dreams. But what was happening is I didn't get the foot traffic that I needed. I didn't keep the financing that I needed, the revenue. I had a creative brand. Being of retail, number one, is fickle, but also being a creative retail where you're making things, that's even harder. So I said, I'm going to keep doing it, but no money was coming in, right? And it looked great. I mean, it looked fantastic. I mean, I had all the social, I was on, different radio shows. It looked fantastic, but then it began tanking. And I didn't know what to do with that because that was not what was supposed to happen. And it was mental anguish. I lost everything. When I say lost everything, I had a great apartment. I mean, I still had a nice car, but all of that money that I was putting into my personal life, it collapsed. So I wound up losing my apartment. I wound up living in the basement of one of my friends' houses. Nice basement, but it wasn't mine. You know what I mean? So what I'm saying is, what happens when you have that dream, when you have that thing in you that you run with and it does not work? And then you go to everyone and what do they say? Oh, it's okay, it'll work out. Or why did you do that? Or the people who are like the haters. And it's mental that you're going through this whole mental anguish. And with me, I was so depressed, I didn't want to talk about it at all. Like I wasn't on social media or anything. And for me, it took 2 years for me to resolve that. So now I got a great job, right? I got out of that. But my goal is to talk to entrepreneurs like you that are going through this right now, that's looking at COVID and saying everything is falling apart. How can I get out of this? Or what if you don't get on the other side? What if your business really has to condense and collapse, and then you have to go and get another job? Are you going to feel like a failure continually about that? You might. I know I did. And what this group is going to do is, number one, we're going to be real with you. Jim is going to help you with that. Majette is going to bring together that emotional and the mental health of being an entrepreneur is a real thing, because I'm telling you, depression, you can go through that when you're in isolation, and you're doing that as you're walking forward with this dream. So I really want you just to listen to what we're talking about. And we're going to keep this as organic as possible, about 30 minutes of just giving you the overview, and then we'll open it up to questions. But if you're going through it right now where you feel like I failed, I didn't do this right, or I did everything right and my dream is not coming out the way I want it to, don't look at yourself like that, because that's a part of the entrepreneur journey. If you're writing your novel, if you're doing the Walter Isaacson biography, you're on chapter 8. You still have about 20 other chapters to go. So this is what this conversation is about. And I'm going to introduce you to Majette Rays. She's with Diva Girl. So about Majette, she's an entrepreneur, she's a mom, and she's also a recent college graduate, maybe about 2 years. But then she is a mental health practitioner, and her specialty is trauma therapy. And I want Majette to just talk to you about, number one, being a mom, being an entrepreneur, but listening to those triggers that you're going to have to deal with during that time of entrepreneurship. So Majette, could you just introduce yourself to the crowd?
Yeah, definitely. Hello, everyone. My name is Majette. Thank you, Tamara, for having us here, for having me be a part of this project.
Hey, guys, sorry, there's a lot of echo. I don't know if it's someone that's not on mute. Holly was the only other one that wasn't on mute.
John, so I'm only hearing echo when you unmute yourself. So are you listening on multiple devices, perhaps? Oh, you're muted now. Sorry. I'll chat you.
All right, cool. I am not hearing any echoes, even when Tamara was talking. So, but anyways, but thank you, John. Well, so thank you everybody for being here. You could have been somewhere else doing something else, but you decided to be here and join us. And I'm just grateful for that. Again, I'm grateful for Tamara for having this project, and it's happening now. And I'm super happy to be here. So again, my name is Majette, and I help people find fulfillment through counseling and community. So I own Resilient Mind Works Counseling for about 4 years now. I graduated in 2016 from Jefferson University with a master's in community and trauma counseling. And I own Diva Girl. And Diva Girl is a community that educates and empowers women with workshops, conferences, networking events, and volunteer trips abroad. Now, before I was a counselor, before I was a trauma counselor, and before I was a Diva Girl, I was a paramedic. I was a medic. I was working in a hospital in the ER. I was working on the streets doing 911 calls. I was working on an ambulance. And then doing that for 13 years, I realized that, okay, that was my passion. My heart was there. And after 13 years of doing it, getting burnt out, getting my own traumatic experiences from that job, I realized that this is not making me happy anymore. I am not happy doing this. My passion is gone, and I need to change. I wasn't growing anymore. I wasn't being challenged, and I was a new mom. And I thought to myself, I am not happy, and I want this kid to grow up to be happy. And I was like, I can't tell a kid, like, be happy, and I wasn't showing her what happy looks like. So I knew I needed to get out of emergency medical services. I knew I needed to have a change, get that change. And deep down inside, I know I want to have my own business. I didn't know in what. I don't know what brings me joy anymore during that time. I didn't know what I'm passionate about anymore. And I wanted to start a business in what? I didn't have family members. I don't have family members who are in business. I don't have family members or friends who have businesses. I don't have any friends who are in business. So I'm like, what am I going to do? I was so lost, and I was so sad that I didn't know what to do. And all I wanted to be was to be happy, and happy with what I'm doing. So one day I decided to go to a conference. at that conference, I met people who were happy, energetic, passionate, doing what they love and making money from it. And I was like, I'm inspired. I want to be just like them. I want to do what they're doing. How do I do that? And right now, fast forward, I'm in my 6th year of being a business owner. And I'm going to tell you, I'm doing what I love. I feel fulfilled and I know my purpose now. But before I got to this point, it wasn't easy. And I felt so alone. It was the hardest thing that I had to start and build, but I found my purpose. And so that's what I would like to remind everyone, that if you're an entrepreneur now, you know it's not easy and it is the most challenging thing to do. It's hard, it's stressful, it's frustrating, it's scary, and most of all, it's isolating. It's so sad. I remember being sad starting my business. I have family and friends and a support system who are great people, right? But they don't know, they don't understand what I was going through. They don't understand why I would leave a job, have a family and leave a job that's secure, and do these changes and follow my purpose. Looking for that fulfillment. They don't understand it, but we're going to give them the benefit of the doubt, right? Because they want you to succeed. They don't want to see you suffer. They want you to be successful. And this is scary for them as well. But it is not our responsibility to make them understand. It is not our responsibility to hold ourselves back and adjust to them and wait for them to buy into our ideas. Right? It's not. So what do we need to do? We needed to find our new support system, love our family, love our friends, appreciate them, but we need new support system. We need to go out and network. We need to meet new people, right? And we need to meet people who know what we're going through. We need to find mentors, people who had been there and done that, and people who we want to be like. And we need to find groups wherein they know the challenges and the joys of being an entrepreneur. We need to attend events that gets us out of our comfort zone. So pretty much we need to find people who understand, the part, that failure part, because successful businesses fail, right? So failure is part of being a business owner. And we need to surround ourselves with people who understand that that is part of the entrepreneurial journey, failure. So let's talk about failure for a little bit. So failure is when you're failing, that means you're creating, you're opening yourself up to opportunities. And if you're not failing, that means you're not learning, you're not creating, you're not growing, you're not getting out of your comfort zone. And failure is a fact. So how can we be resilient? How can we be resilient if failure is a fact in business? So here's a quick one, 5 tips. Self-care. And I don't mean manicure, pedicure, massages, spa days. No, it's finding activities that brings you joy and putting that on your calendar and scheduling everything else around it. Because when you're doing something that brings you joy, that means you're in your zone of genius and you're doing something that you love, that fulfills you, and that's your purpose and that's your why. And I want you to tap into your why all the time, because your why is your purpose, and everything else, the how, you can figure that out. And then number 2, wellness. Now, you're going to be the hardest worker when you have your own business. You have to take care of your mental health, your physical health, and your spiritual health. So rest, sleep, eat, breathe, take a pause. Rest is important for business owners. And lastly, be present. Be present, because when you're, especially with what's happening in the world right now, this pandemic, we can worry about things that hasn't happened yet, and that causes anxiety. And we get stuck there and we're like, oh my God, I cannot get there. I don't know what to do. I'm stuck. I don't know how I'm going to get through this. You're stuck in that future mode. And then you can be sad and feel lonely and sad for the mistakes and you not being prepared for a pandemic. Who knew there was going to be a pandemic, right? Like, or anything else that's happening in the world, like, or in your life or in your business. You can be sad and beat yourself up for for not being prepared or the mistakes that you've done, then you're stuck there. And what you need, where you need to be, where we all need to be, is to be present in the here and now, focusing on what needs to be solved right now, right in this moment. Because being present is preparing you for the uncertainties and makes you the most resilient entrepreneur in the world. Amen.
Hey, now, Majette, I love that. I love what you said about that. And I know we're working in time right here, but one thing that I want you to bring forth to the crowd, because we hear about this resilience and getting over it, and there's a lot of people who have their businesses that they're feeding them. It's feeding them, and it's at a time where the business is no longer the fuel. And you're frustrated and you're scared. And I know before COVID, this was happening to me. So 2017, I didn't have the resiliency. My business tanked. It failed completely. And I'm saying to myself, okay, I got to figure out how to eat. I'm doing Uber. I'm the diva in the store, and now I'm driving Uber, and I'm looking at my phone and I'm watching everybody with the hustle hard and team no sleep, and I'm getting money and all of this. And I'm saying to myself, what did I do wrong to not get to the next side? And for what I want you to tell the audience is, when I'm hearing that running tape within me, what's the first thing that you would tell me to do to number one, stop that? And another thing that I was doing, I was breaking away from those relationships that were keeping me human, because all of your friends shouldn't all be entrepreneurs. They should be those loved ones that may have not got your business, but they get you. So can you talk about that?
Oh, I love that. Yeah, that's why we keep those people, right? Those friends and family who are not in business, because they do care. They do love us, right? Whether we fail or be successful, like those are the people that we still need to reach out to. So asking for help and asking for what you need from the people that you trust, or the new friends that you've created from the networking events that you've attended, right? Like, they don't know what you need. They can't assume. So they don't know if you don't ask. Ask for what you need. Ask for help. You can't do it alone. And then the other thing is, so what we think about turns into our feelings, and how we feel becomes the action, produces the action. So if you have that negative thought, it turns into a really negative feeling, and then the negative action is bad. So for example, if you're beating yourself up and have this negative thought about yourself, then you feel sad, you feel disappointed, you may feel angry, right? And you may feel really frustrated, and the action that comes out of that is probably not productive. So change that negative thought, question that thought. Is that true? No, that's not true. Then change it. We can't control our first thought. We know that, but we can change our second thought. So change that second thought into something positive. Positivity makes the positive feeling, turns into a positive action.
I love that. I love that.
I have an idea, something I do. With negative thoughts, sometimes they just stick around. A strategy that I've learned is to sing them, or to acknowledge that they're not good thoughts. So to say the thought is, I'm a loser, or I'm not good enough, right? So you say, I notice I'm having a thought that I'm not good enough. Right. You could say that. So it kind of disconnects it from you. Or you could sing it, which I don't know if you guys want me to do right now. But you could actually sing it, and it makes it seem like it's kind of silly. Like, it's not a valid thought, but like, I notice I'm having the thought that I am a loser. And then you're kind of like,
I love that, Jon.
It doesn't necessarily make it like go away or solve all the problems, but it's like, I can move on.
Right.
Exactly. Acknowledging it and meaning it. Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you.
I love that idea as well. Yes, because that makes so much sense. Did we have anyone else that wanted to say? I thought I heard someone there. Well, no, with Majette, I love what she was saying, and I loved everything about just keeping that thought and keeping your friends, keeping your connections while you're going through this. What I enjoy is she's giving us the emotional. And I'm going to move this over to Jim, because one thing I know about Jim, Jim is with the West Philadelphia Financial Services Institute in Philadelphia. If you're not here, he's definitely the person to talk to if you're in Philadelphia and you need to talk about finances or just some type of advice. But he's dealt with startups and he's dealt with $1 million corporations and projects. So he's the realist, you know, for me, when I talk to him about financing, because we can be very flighty and emotional and connected to all of these great feelings. But when you go to your financial lenders, they want to know about what are you doing with your money? Where is this coming from? So Jim, what I want you to bring, you know, forth is, number one, talk about what the feelings right now that are going on with COVID. I know we have a lot of PPP loans. People may not know about that. And just your experience dealing with that entrepreneur or even that seasoned business owner where they're in that moment where they're like, okay, I don't know which way to go. If you can just speak to the audience on that, that would be fantastic.
Sure. Tamara, thanks for having me. I really I love this group and what you guys are trying and what we're trying to accomplish here. And I can be flighty every now and again too, you know, just because I'm a banker or a lender doesn't mean we can't be flighty. So I think the challenge for everybody right now is that the emergency was so sudden. And that there was, you know, in the past recession, there was coming, you know, this time it was literally a month and, you know, 20% of the population is unemployed. And that's tragic, not just for the business owner, but his or her employees too. So it's not just, you know, the one family that's impacted by this. It's still the entire, the business, their family members, and the employees and their family members are all impacted by this. And I think as a business owner, people don't look at that emotional side of it. And as bankers or lenders, we have a tendency to only focus on the facts. So one of the things that we've had to do now is to adjust to that emotional side and allow people, quite frankly, just to vent. One of the business owners that I talked to last week, she just needed 20 minutes to get it off her chest that she wasn't able to get a grant from the city of Philadelphia, that she wasn't able to get a PPP loan, and that her business was still struggling. And so for her, that moment and being in the moment was just to have somebody to express those feelings right away. What she did from that point on, though, was gone to her business association. So something Majette said in terms of making connections. Small business owners need to be affiliated with some type of business association, even if it's a local corridor business association, or whether it is a group that's affiliated with your industry. You need to have a network that's tied to your industry, so you have those relationships and you can see where your industry is going. In her case, she worked with the 40 businesses in her association to help them all apply for PPP loans and all apply for, so she wasn't getting it herself, so she didn't allow that to stop her. She still went out and made these connections and was delivering information to her corridor neighbors. And what has resulted from that is another 100, and she happens to be in the hair care business, but another 100 businesses who were in the hair care industry, both barbers and stylists, to come together and say, as a collective, what can we do? So what they're looking at now, where they were missing as an individual coming out of COVID, I may not be able to market my business enough to get it back on the scale. But if I'm doing it along with these other 100 businesses, and we can create a campaign over this particular issue of hair, getting your hair cut, getting your nails done, whatever it happens to be, now you're utilizing that network that you had. Now you're utilizing the opportunity to work together. I think what I would say for the small business owners right now is, first thing you want to do is really assess your business. The immediate panic, it may be over for some, it's not necessarily over for everybody, but once you get through that stage, you need to really assess your business. Where are the things you could have done better? Not by placing blame on yourself, but really looking at the things that you honestly could have been better prepared for. Whether it's, you know, having better technology and using that, or having better accounting system and using that. Look, everything shut down. So it wasn't like you were not going to necessarily shut down, but what are the tools that would allow you to get through this? The other thing is to connect with your peers, like I stated, but the other thing is reducing the anxiety by reducing cost. Where are the ways that you can reduce costs? Because could you talk to your landlord about, hey, can I get a deferment? Can you talk to your banker? Can I get a deferment? Or can you waive these payments? Because that will help reduce that anxiety that Majed is talking about. And now we can really focus on what the next stage of this is, which, how do I plan to grow out of this? And whether you decide to grow out of it or you realize that your business can't, those are real decisions and realization that you need to make over this period of time.
Good. And Jim, I know in our discussions before, you were saying that, you know, that parachute, you know, having those parachutes that we need. And also you spoke about like looking at the brighter side. So there was a picture that you had where you're looking at the horizon, or actually just looking at the ground, and it's desolate. It looks, you know, almost like a desert, but there's these small shoots of green coming out of it, right? And I feel like as a business owner, no matter what, whether you're in day one or a startup, like, you know, I work for a company right now. I love them, but they still work as a startup. They have that mindset because they're still going forward. They're not looking at it like, okay, we're good, we're settled, you know? So I feel like the small business owner and even that seasoned entrepreneur needs to continue to look at that. If you can just speak on that as well.
Yeah, I mean, the reality is we sometimes get caught up in, you know, what we can immediately see. Mm-hmm. And that's where, when I took that picture, it was really a desolate space. But then when you look closer, when you zoom in, you can see these shoots of green coming out of these reeds, because life is still going on. And there are opportunities, even if you have to close your business, or in some cases, sell your business. Maybe you sell your business before it gets to that point, and that kind of creates this parachute. But we have to do the analysis to see if that's even an opportunity. The challenge with some businesses, though, unfortunately, is that they may not have done their taxes. They may not have done some things that, because now that they didn't do it, the reality is they can't sell that business. Even though somebody might be in the market for that type of business, they're going to end up in a situation where that closes. But what they have to do is look at it from the perspective of, how can I minimize this as much as possible so that I don't lose, like you spoke about, losing everything. And you know, because now you're talking about deterioration of families and a whole lot of other things that go beyond just the business as an asset, and hopefully at some point in the time that asset giving you a lot of value.
Wow, that's very powerful, and that's a great segue into Mark right now. You know, just speaking about that, you know, changing businesses. So as I told you, for some of you who weren't on board, everyone that's on this panel, they met me along my business journey at one stage. So Majed, she met me, you know, in the beginning, the running stage, you know, as a startup, and then getting into, you know, my boutique. Then I met Jim once I had that brick and mortar. You know, he saw me do great things. Then I met Mark on the other side, you know, after the business collapsed, after I'm trying to find myself, looking for that job. And now, you know, I'm at that job now that, you know, is feeding me and taking care of me. But I met Mark, and it was really water cooler talk. You know, we were just talking about life, but he's an entrepreneur as well, a videographer. You know, he's a husband, he's a father. And remember, when you're going through this journey of entrepreneurship, life is happening while you're doing it. You know, you're falling in love, you're getting married, you're having kids, you're burying parents. All of these things happen on top of what's going on, you know, collectively. So Mark, if you can just, number one, introduce yourself and talk about your journey from being that entrepreneur that had to pivot, become an employee again, and then become that creative director that you are now. So here's Mark.
Hey there, how's it going? It's great to be here. So I ran a skatewear company called Illidale. It was a skatewear and media company. And we built it up to a certain point where I was ready to take the next stage in our company's goal, which was to get a mobile truck and have a mobile skate shop. And when it got to a certain point when we couldn't get the financing for that goal and the business was no longer supporting itself, I had to make the hard decision to shut down my business and move forward. At that current stage of my life, I had just got engaged to my wife. We were planning on moving. I was transitioning into needing to get back into the workforce. So I sold my van, which was, depressing, but, and I hopped into the workforce. And what I did notice from transitioning from an entrepreneur and going back into the workforce is that I generally excelled fairly well in the workforce because I came from working with an entrepreneurial mind. I wasn't just, your average worker. I had a lot of creative ideas that were out of the box and a lot of intuition. And I was able to create products that lasted in the companies, past my time. But one of the things that I generally kind of found difficult about transitioning from an entrepreneur and going back into the workforce is I'm an entrepreneur at heart, and it was very difficult for me to fully connect and to, give my all to a company because at the end of the day, it wasn't my company. Like I didn't have the stakes in it, which coming from the failure of Illidale and moving forward, it took years before I was able to actually get the courage and the confidence to go back and hit another entrepreneurial venture. By this point, I was married. We were about to buy a house, and we were talking about having kids and expanding the family. And I had to realize that I had to move forward. So I started small. I wasn't 100% committed to launching another company again. But, 2 years after my company went down, 3 years after my company went down, I started with something very small, like a podcast. And from that podcast, I grew it into a podcasting network. And that gave me a little bit more confidence to go forward, that I still had the creative spark. I still had that entrepreneurial spirit. That one loss didn't beat me down. I was still able to move forward. And continuing with my regular job, I was just continuously trying to build this company to, move on to. And when my wife got pregnant and my son was born, it was really the fire that excelled in me to let my son know that if he wants to be an entrepreneur, if he wants to have an untraditional career path, and it's free for him to do, to make that choice. The household that I grew up in, the family that I grew up in, everyone generally around me, we came from a very blue collar family. Like my dad provided for us and my mom provided for us. And, they went to work, they clocked in, and, they came home and they were there, and we were this is like a loving family. But for me, going to work and clocking in just always felt just not right. It just couldn't, it was just not in my spirit. I just can't do 20 years that way. It's just not how I'm wired. So moving forward, I think the most important thing when you're transitioning from an entrepreneur and you have to go back into the workforce, that your entrepreneurial days are not over. Just because you failed at one company doesn't mean that you can't learn from that mistake and move forward into a new company. The most important thing is to, really sit down and analyze what was the setbacks, what caused your business to go under, and what can you do moving forward. And most importantly is always be developing, always be learning. Ebooks, podcasts, YouTube, get on YouTube. If it is the largest search engine there is, if you want to learn how to do anything, if you want to learn how to twist hair, if you want to learn how to code, you want to learn how to make videos, whatever your dream is, whatever you think you want to do, there's some kid in Arkansas on YouTube who will talk you through it, and then you will make it your own, and you too can get out there and pursue your dreams. So moving forward, I like to call it, shark vision, constantly always moving forward, acknowledging the past, but not letting it hold you back, and, pursuing your dreams.
That's so good. No, go, John.
Mark, you said just because you failed at your business doesn't mean you can't succeed in another company. I think because you failed in your business, you will succeed at the next company.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I love that.
You learned more than anyone so I started in corporate in an analyst job and worked my way up, and I didn't learn a lot there. Then I left and I started my own business. But if I had started vice versa, either way, like you run your own business, you're doing everything, and that's you. So you learn, you fail. If you failed, it's not necessarily because of you, but you ran a business. And how many other people in a corporate job or any kind of job can say that? So I think it's huge to be able to say that because you failed, you can do better.
Right. And I think a lot of people who aren't entrepreneurs don't understand that failure is the love language of entrepreneurs. Like you have to fail and learn how to fail. And if you can do it, fail fast. Like know when to get off the train, like know when it's not going to work out for you and when to move on and when to pivot. I mean, it's such a hot word, pivoting, but it's important. Look at, Amazon, they sold books. Now they're making TV shows and they're huge. They're everywhere. They're delivering packages with drones. So just being able to, if you're going to be an entrepreneur, you have to be okay with some failure, and it's going to hurt, and you're going to have to pick yourself up and dust yourself off and get back on that horse and just learn from your mistakes. And even though your business failed, your knowledge is still there. Everything you took to build that business, you still have it moving forward. Apply it to the next business with the same knowledge of your failures, and let's get a successful business going.
See why I love these folks? I really do, because it's just, it's so good to hear that. Like what I do, like now, I'm still transitioning, with the full time, but I like the fact that number one, Mark, you were saying you got to fail fast, right? Like you got to fail fast. You got to do those things. You have to do it as an entrepreneur, even when you're feeling like you're worst. Like with me, I'm always looking at the next thing. Like I love to see what's going on. There's a podcast that I listen to, with podcasts like Gimlet, right? So Gimlet is taking care of, like, they have so many different series, but they started out with one idea and it grew, and it was a passion. Like when I'm watching Shark Tank or even talking to different, lenders, the first thing they'll say is, how are you solving a problem? And you don't always have to solve a problem. Sometimes the problem might be within you, where you have this passion that you want to just take out to the world, and it becomes this great thing. And what I love about some of the podcasts that I'm listening to now, entrepreneurs are just doing that. They're saying, I want to do this because I love what I see, not necessarily because I'm solving a problem, but this is what I want to do. They go out and they make it happen. So I'm going back on what, Jon is saying, that, you know what, coming from corporate, then you're a business owner, you have to keep that buzz going, because if you don't, basically, what are you doing? And no knocking to folks who are employees, because that mindset, you're going to have to pivot between both. I want someone who wants to be that kick-ass employee for me. I had kick-ass employees and entrepreneurs. So, I mean, and interns. So I guess what I'm saying is, as you're on this wave, as you're walking through this, and like right now with COVID, we got the mask on, you're washing your hands every 20 seconds, and then you're thinking about this business. Know that if this was not a present thing, if this was not happening now, you still would bump your head against a wall. There are entrepreneurs, business owners that you can see that had to just flip things over and become a new entity, a new brand, but they were still there. And we wanted to talk to folks now while we're in this transition, because guess what? When you become the Warren Buffetts, how tangible are to folks like us, right? We're going online, we're reading your stories, but I can't walk up to you and really get who you are. So that's one reason why we wanted to be on Venture Cafe, and just to talk to like-minded individuals, hopefuls, because this is the part of the journey that makes you really steadfast, and it makes you really keen. But you need to know that there's other people out there that look like you, that don't look like you, but have that fire in them. So what I'm going to do now, since we really moved more quicker than what I thought, I want to open this up to our crowd, and you can talk to us. I hope you feel that you can. I'm also
Tamara, I got something already. If
you
I
got
can,
it. All right, go ahead, Jon. Go.
Uh, so you said something about do what you love, right? So a lot of people do what they love, but they don't think about the money part.
Absolutely.
And I did that myself. You know, I came from a corporate job. I had a lot of savings and that, and I started my business. I didn't think a lot about the money. I was using my own money. So I have a question. I think more for James about maybe, and I'm at the point where with my business, I might want to partner with someone that is more about the money and maybe more business like, because I like. So there's point A where you get your funding right for your business, and there's point B where you can start the business and you got that runway, and then point C, D, and E, and F, and G, and all those things that are the customers and actually making your business work, right? And there's another point where you have to get more money, maybe potentially. I don't necessarily like the money point. I don't like that point A to point B. I'm really good I'm very resourceful. I can start a business with no money. I bootstrapped it, and I did it. But how would you recommend, like, I'm also looking right now for a person that can come in and partner with me and having those conversations. Like, who do I look for? Where do I look? What do I do?
Well, that's a really great scenario that you put forward. I know a lot of people who have bootstrapped their own businesses and are very comfortable where they are. The challenge typically becomes is when you want to scale. And as you're at that point of getting ready to scale and you can no longer bring the resources by yourself, you're going to have to find that additional investor. And whether that's debt because you've been generating revenue and you have some income to pay back your debt service, or if it's equity and you're getting someone else's dollars who believes in you also, but more an ownership interest in the business. I think for you and for others in that space, it's almost a mental, and I'd even ask Majet, because it really is getting over your own anxieties initially, but then putting in the documentation that protects you, your business, and your asset moving forward, because you still want, you may be giving up some of your company, but you want to make sure that there's something left for you too. So it's not like you're giving up 100%, you're giving up something, and you still want to be able to protect it. I like to think of it from the perspective of you've identified an asset and now you're trying to grow that asset. But the other piece of it is that growth requires some additional faith. So that same faith that got you to starting the business in the first place is where you're now having to take faith in somebody else who's outside of it, but can bring more resources and help it grow. So step on that faith, but at the same time, protect yourself and your original dream that continues on as you move forward.
And how do you value that? That's tough, right? Like, how do you value, like, I'm the customer guy. Like, I like to be with my customers. I built this, it's generating revenue. I want to be the one on the front lines, whether it's a small business that's brick and mortar or it's a tech company.
You're the sales guy.
Yeah, you're the sales guy, you're the marketing guy, but then you need somebody to run the business administration, the MBA to come in. Like, how do you value that and say, like, okay, you get 10%, you get 20%, and you get, is there a formula for that? I know there's not, but.
And again, it depends on, you can hire that talent, right? So you don't necessarily need to have that person invest in you to run those things. You're still in charge and you can hire that talent. I think that's different necessarily than looking for the investor. Now, you would like that investor to bring additional tools other than capital, because in some cases, but a lot of investors bring connections and they bring, it might be the accounting side of it. I think what you have to do is start to measure the value to you and how much the return on that investment in that individual or that investment is going to lead to your greater success. The actual number, they're going to look at you from what you've been able to produce and where they may see the revenue growth being. So that's one of the big things that you're going to have to get a handle on if you're looking for that additional equity type of investor versus a debt or hiring somebody else.
Got it. That helps. And do you as a so do you lend as well? I guess, are you a
Yes,
lender?
our primary business is providing loans
Okay.
to small businesses in the greater Philadelphia area.
So would you interview founders, co-founders, owners in terms of their abilities, their skills? So me, like I'm not good
Every
with the
day.
accounting, not good with the
Yeah,
books.
so
Not my
that's
thing.
where we want to look at your team, and so again, that team could be a partner, it could be a key personnel, so it just varies depending on where you are within your business cycle.
Got it. Okay.
Jim, well, does anybody else have a question before I jump in? I wanted to ask Jim another question. It might be on someone's mind or not. So if I'm someone who has like a little bit of savings, right? And I come to you, I've been working at my business for 5 years and I've made just a little bit of revenue, nothing's great. And I say, okay, would it be best that I, put up a house or put up this 401k? Like, what would you feel as a lender if I'm coming to you with that conversation, with that language? I know you're telling me I need the paperwork, but.
So yeah, I need the paperwork, but beyond the paperwork, I think you got to understand the situation that we're all in right now, and it's become a lot more risky to lend money. And so that means that most lenders are going to require more from their borrowers, which includes the knowledge of their business, which includes the team around them. That's your accountants, your legal, your mentors who you can count on for advice. We ask all of those questions because we really want to get to know you for two reasons. One is because we need to understand your business as best as possible to make a prudent lending decision. The second reason is we actually use a loan committee. So we take all of our transactions to a loan committee. So if I'm going to be your advocate, I can't be your advocate if I don't know who you are, if I haven't had these conversations with you. So we really kind of drive down and see as much as we can about you and your business. And even the fact that you might have a family, because what's the impact on that family also if this doesn't succeed? And maybe it's a better thing for you not to take on the amount of debt, or whether it's a different type of product. We really try to work with you to figure out the right investment for you that might not even be our money. It might be somebody else's money.
Very good. I like that. Majette, what I want you to answer, we talked about this lightly, but so anyone who has like a relationship that they're in right now, say the significant other is not really feeling the business, not because they don't believe in you, but they're afraid for you, but you're going gung-ho. How can we kind of mend that without it breaking away? Because that was some things that I dealt with. I was like steadfast. I wanted to do my own thing. And, here I am almost 44, not married, because I wanted to do more, but I also push those great people away. So how can you
Tamara, you shouldn't lie about your age.
I know she's fabulous.
It's a Vampire Bites, man. Vampire Bites.
No, like it is real. It's real, those relationships, right? And a lot of us, you're lucky if you're with a partner who is also an entrepreneur, because they understand what you're going through. And I am still with someone who is not an entrepreneur. He saw me, this person saw me struggle. He saw the struggle, and even my parents and my friends, like what I said earlier, keep them. Keep them. Don't push them away. They are just concerned about your well-being. They love you. Let's give them the benefit of the doubt that they love you, they care, they want to support you. But they don't understand what you're going through. And they're afraid of failure. Entrepreneurs know that failure is part of growing, part of business, part of being successful. But for people who are not entrepreneurs, and there's nothing wrong with that, it's just that it's hard for them to understand that. they're afraid that you're gonna fail and you're gonna be hurt and you're gonna be in pain. And come from that space of, curiosity. Come from the space of curiosity with your partners, with your significant others, with your family. Come from the space of curiosity, because when you're curious, it takes away the shame and the blame and the judgment. So you can ask them, have that communication of, would you be interested to know what I'm going through? Or would you like to know about my business? Would you like to understand that? If not, it's totally okay, nothing personal. And it's really not personal for them either. But if you're coming from that space of curiosity, then the shame and the judgment and the blame all kind of goes away. So you understand them as well. Because we also have to understand that it's hard to understand a mind of an entrepreneur, unless you're going through the same things. So yeah, that's kind of like my go-to, even for myself. When I'm with my family or friends, they would never understand. And they ask me, I'm doing good. I'm doing my best. And if they're really curious, I'm like, you're really curious, sure, let's talk about it, right? But yeah, I wouldn't talk the struggles and, but the joys, they love hearing the joys, but the struggles and the challenges, they probably won't understand. So.
Awesome. So we have about 4 minutes. Mark, one thing I wanted you to bring up, you didn't bring this up. You said you came from a blue collar family. You didn't bring it up to the panel, but being that blue collar family that worked, and then you were this, this rising star that did your own thing. Can you just talk about that, like emotional pivoting in about 2 minutes before?
Yeah,
I know
sure.
it's a lot, right? Make it happen, man.
Yeah. One of the things I think is important for anyone who's similar to like my circumstances, where you really didn't have a lot of entrepreneurs to kind of mold your stuff around, is I think, well, two things mainly. One is you have to have almost a cult-like belief in your own abilities to see your own vision come to life. You need to understand that you're going to have to come past a lot of obstacles, a lot of naysayers, a lot of people who don't understand why you're doing what you're doing when you could be doing something else that's either more profitable or stress-free or, more income-driven. But if you have a vision, if you have a goal, you have to stick to it. You have to believe it has to become very biblical to you, in a sense that you're going to make sure and you're going to accomplish it. And I think the second thing that's very, very important is getting mentors. If you're an introvert, such as myself, I like to coin the term secret mentors. So, stalk your Gary V's, like I said, get on the YouTubes and the Instagram and find people who are doing what you want to do and just watch them move. Or if you can, in actual real life, if you're not afraid to get out there and talk to people. And one of the big things with entrepreneurship, unless your business is strictly online, you're going to have to overcome that, like becoming uncomfortable. You're going to have to become very, very comfortable just being uncomfortable and icky in your own skin and getting out there and meeting people. And if you can get yourself some mentors, some people who have taken the bruises for you and can kind of point you in the right direction, that's super helpful as well. My family, luckily, they've always been pretty supportive for the most part. It's just that, they're not entrepreneurs, so they don't understand the struggles. Like if I'm talking about my ideas or having to pivot or not quite wanting to be another cog in the great machine that is, corporate America, they're kind of just like, but you can retire, you get paid the 1st and the 15th. I don't want to stress about that. But to me, that's not stress. That's living. Like, to me, I feel dead in the cubicle. I don't know if that answered it. I feel like it did a little bit. I don't know.
No, that was great. I'm done. We have about 4 more minutes. So, the audience, feel free, like, don't be sheepish or afraid. Unmute if you have a question. And but this is fantastic. So I'm going to be quiet because you're going to say something. Somebody's going to say something here.
Quick question to James, kind of stemming off of one of John's questions. I'm curious, as you're vetting potential businesses, potential individuals or teams, assets to invest in, what are some potential characteristics that you look for? Recently read one of Ray Dalio's books, and I know he's got 3 things. It was skill set, ability, and alignment of values. So I'm curious, for me, and then also for some people that, yes, would benefit from some investment down the road, but from your perspective, I'm sure these characteristics are conducive for a successful business since you're investing in them. Yeah, would love to pick your brain on that.
Yeah, all 3 of those are really important. I think most recently I have been looking at the team more so than just the individual, because I think it's really important for everyone to realize that they have to create some collaborations to have some success, and whether that is the mentor team or your financial team or your partners within it. We have really shifted, because one of the things as an organization, we're mission driven. So we're really focused on Greater Philadelphia, trying to enhance the small business marketplace. So we definitely want to make sure you have the talent and you have some experience in the space that you're working in. But then who are those people that are mentoring you through? Because you are going to come up with all the challenges that Tamara and Mark and Majette have talked about going through this. And how do you kind of manage your way through that space? The second thing, or the third thing ultimately, is how are you going to pay me back? And do you fully understand how you make money? You'd be surprised how many times I ask somebody, how do you make money? And they have no clue how they make money. And it seems very simple, but if you can't talk your way through a conversation with me or any other lender, that leaves me feeling like you fully understand how your business operates, you're probably not going to get the investment.
That's good. Thank you so much.
Well, it is 7:44, folks. We did this. I love talking.
I got more. No.
We got one more? Go ahead, Jon.
I always got more. Always got more. I was wondering from Majette, just, I'm losing it. Hold on. Oh, I lost my train of thought.
That's all right.
No, I think the one thing I've done, actually, she was talking about when a partner, a family member, or someone, and Mark was talking about this, doesn't quite get on board with you. Just ask them, can you let me do this? Can you let me do this?
Mm.
And they don't have to agree. But if you say, can you let me do this? Then you'll see their answer. And you ask them for permission. And if they can't give it to you, then maybe they're not the right person. If I come from a family of entrepreneurs, and my mom still is like, just go back to your corporate job. Come on, get your health benefits and all that stuff. And I'm like, Mom, can you, I don't say ask her, I'd say, just let me do this. You did it, Mom, come on. So just ask them, just say, can you let me do this, and see what happens. So if that's something that you're struggling with, just ask for permission and see what they say.
I love that. Yeah. Totally ask them that question. Can you let me do that? Do you trust me enough? Do you believe in me enough? Right. And, and at the end of the day, they probably do. It's just that they're worried, just like your mom. They don't want you to not have money to pay for bills, to not be able to take care of your family. They don't want you to take a risk. It's a risk, but you're going to follow your dreams, and you're going to do what makes you feel fulfilled. And, and you're going to, your purpose, and you're just going to keep doing it. So.
Awesome. Thanks.
So good. Thank you so much. Natalie, thank you. Everyone, just thank you so much for being a part of this. Folks who kind of popped in and out. I see some of my Reminder Media people sneaking. So thank you for being here. I love it. Yeah, I would love to do this again in person, mask free,
100%. Thank you all so much. This was an amazing conversation, and we just really appreciate you all sharing your words of wisdom and your guidance with the crowd here tonight. Venture Cafe is about to do a virtual toast, so I'll post a link to that in the chat box here. We hope to see you there, but if not, have a great night, and we hope to see you again in another Venture Cafe, either virtual or in person, sometime in the future. So thank you all so much. Have a good night.